minute. Something was funky about that. A through E, refrigerant, box temp, superheat, slave, DFN. 37. DFN. Number of defrosts per day. What the hell? 37? Something's funky there. That's not right.
This video is brought to you by Sporlan. Quality, integrity, and tradition.
Today we got a beer walker that's not working. This is a QRC, it's Heatcraft's quick response controller equipped. So the problem actually is that it's getting too cold. So this is a walk-in cooler and it's 26 degrees in here right now. So let's open this up and see what the QRC display actually says the temperature in the box is. Alright, so we've got an error message of A2 and it says it's 25 degrees in the box right now. It's also put itself into a defrost. So A2, if you look right here, is going to be low room temp. Well, no duh. It's colder than crap in here. What I did was put it into a forced service mode. So that way it's going to shut off the evaporator fan motors because I got to get my face up in here and freezing my face off right now. Alright, I had to unplug the fans because this thing is not shutting off. And it's acting really funky. So now we're getting an E6, which is a low superheat, an A2, which is a low temp, and it says it's off, but for whatever reason, when I hit forced service, it's not pumping down. I can hear refrigerant flowing through the expansion valve right now. That's interesting. So I'm going to monitor right now. Again, I disconnected this, so the fan shut off. So we're going to go to monitor, and then we're looking for suction pressure, SCP. SCP is 50 psi. Why is SCP 50 psi? This thing should be shut off right now. As far as disconnecting the evaporators, I do want to point out that you don't want to do that for very long because we're flooding that compressor right now. So the forced service, I did it wrong. We got to push it 2 times to get it to pump down. So that's interesting. It's not responding at all. I don't know why. This thing is acting really funky. It's not responding at all to my commands, and it's randomly going into defrost. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go shut off the condensing unit, so at least we're not flooding it anymore. And then that way we can play with this a little bit more. Yeah, this thing has been running like this for a long time. The manager actually told me that, well, it's weird. Why is it not running? The manager actually told me that they've been shutting off the breaker for the evaporator fan motors, which is not good. You'll be lucky if there's not compressor damage. I don't know why this wasn't running yet. Maybe a time delay. No, it doesn't have a time delay anymore. That's interesting. I went ahead and disconnected 24 volts, reset the board, and this is where we're at. So we're gonna hit program review first, see what's going on with the program. Okay. Air defrost. Refrigerant should be 48A. Okay, that's correct. Box temp should be like 30, yeah, 37, okay. Superheat should be 8, 7, that's fine. It is not a slave, no. Let's see. That's defrost failsafe, I think. DFN, wait, what? DFF is failsafe, 20 minutes. DFT, end temperature 45. DFS is offset. We could wait a minute. Something was funky about that. A through E, refrigerant, box temp, superheat, slave, DFN. 37. DFN. Number of defrosts per day. What the hell? 37? Something's funky there. That's not right. Yeah, there's something weird going on with this board. Let's do 6 defrosts a day. That's a bit excessive, but for now we're going to leave it at that. That's really weird. DFF, DFT, DFS, ALH, ALL, ALT. I'm not worried about any of the alarms. Fahrenheit, Celsius, FN5. Off. Okay, so the unit is off right now. Alright, now let's look at monitor and see what my temperature's. Monitor, superheat, -15. That doesn't seem right. Expansion valves closed, at least it says it is. SCT is suction temperature 31. SST 46. SCP suction pressure 81 psi. Why? That's funky. ODT, DFT is end temperature. Wait, what? DFT? This is weird. Things. DFE, AC, 26 volts, SP, set point temp. Wait, SPT? What the hell is SPT? Spare temperature. That's not being used, okay. Doesn't help that I'm not super familiar with these things. REL. I have no idea. Boy, this compressor is not happy right now. It's making some funny sounds. Some serious flooding going on. I'm trying to see if the system's gonna pump down right now. We're gonna go downstairs and try to get it to pump down. I wanted to get my pressure ports on there so I can verify accuracy of the transducers. All right, so my suction pressure is 62 degrees and it says it's 62 psi, and it says it's 64 psi, but what I'm concerned about is right here. When you look at my expansion valve steps, so we're in a pump down right now, supposedly. PSP, that's the steps of the expansion valve. It says 0. It says 0, but the valve is open, is my concern here. So what's going on? All right, so I did service mode, and it thinks that it pumped down. The expansion valve steps are 0, but I can still hear refrigerant flowing, and we're still at 60 psi. So something's going on with the expansion valve, I think. Interesting. So, because let's go to the steps again. Superheat. Okay, this ESP, I believe, is the steps, and that's 0. That's interesting. So, if we look right here, ESP is expansion valve steps. Huh. Very, very interesting. I need to do some reading to find out if there's a way that maybe the expansion valve's out of whack and I need to reset it. I can't think that the expansion valve is stuck open, but there's always that possibility too. All right, I'm back up on the roof. I went ahead and pumped down at the receiver. Heatcraft has a method here. I don't think what I'm thinking is accurate, but Heatcraft just tells you to check the valve, which I kind of already know that the valve is leaking by. But the only thing I want to know, because the board was acting funky, I want to know if like the board doesn't know the proper steps on the valve, like something's out of sync or something. That's what I want to check. Simply because of how the board was giving me weird numbers and it had a weird defrost setup in it and things like that. So we're going to wait for it to pump down. We're going to go downstairs, check the valve again, make sure it's at 0, and then confirm that the valve itself is actually bad. All right, for giggles, we're going to try this one more time. So we're in service mode right now, so it's pumped down. We're going to go to expansion valve steps. It says 0. That expansion valve is closed. So when I open up the receiver on the roof, we should get no refrigerant flow. And if we do, we just have a bad expansion valve. There's nothing that I can check to see if the valve is out of sync or whatever I was thinking. I don't even know if that's possible. I just had it in my head that maybe something happened within the board and the valve, but I'll have to look into that a little bit more. But yeah, at this point, I think we're gonna have to replace the expansion valve, but I'll do that last test one more time real quick. All right, so as I open this, we should have no refrigerant flow. And if the pressures start to climb on the suction side, that's a problem. Yeah, that valve is definitely leaking by. All right, we're gonna run a self-test on this real quick. So we're gonna push this back in. We're going to check voltage. We're gonna hit clear test. We're gonna go into test mode right now. And while it's in test mode, you should see the voltage go on and off. If you follow the instructions, it tells you that it should be, I think, 18 to 20 something degrees, or 18 to 20 volts or something like that, if I remember right. I know it passed it. So we're getting 28 volts, and it goes on and off, on and off. So we've got the correct voltage. That indicates that potentially the board is working properly. So with that being said, we take this off I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect power because I don't need that on for the moment. And the next troubleshooting step that I did was we went over here to this coil, and we're gonna check the coil real quick. Following their instructions, we checked from A to B on the coil orientation like that, and we get 150 ohms approximately, okay? And then we're gonna check the other windings. And let's get this guy on here. Okay. And we get 4 ohms. That should be reading 150, and notice how it's slowly climbing. So the coil on the EEV is damaged. And I have a new coil right here, and we can prove that it's working properly. This does depend on temperature, and they do tell you that reading is at 75 degrees, so give or take a little bit, but this one's reading 140, and this is a brand new coil. And then when I flip it over to the other side, it's reading 142. So here's the question. This coil is defective. Why? What happened to it? I talked to Heatcraft, and they said you can change just the coil, but here's the problem. The coil comes with the whole valve. So what caused it to burn up is my concern. Was it just a faulty coil, or is the valve starting to stick inside? Okay, we've got the nitrogen flowing through the system. I've got Viper wet rag heat blocking compound on there. We're gonna go ahead and do this top one first. Braze this guy in. The valve comes in the open position, so you can braze with nitrogen. You don't have to open the valve at all or anything like that. We're using a number 1 tip on the torch. Okay. So I did the bottom or the top one first, so that way some of the heat would rise away. I mean, I know it's going to flow towards anything, but just that way. Alright, that guy brazed in. Again, very important that we blow with nitrogen or purge with nitrogen. And then also we purge the system before. When I cut the valve out, or when we had the valve out, we purged it with nitrogen to try to make sure that anything that was stuck in there might be out. I got a little bit of dirty residual oil, kind of nasty looking, but that was pretty much it. So we're just going to do an inspection on the valve, make sure the braze joints look good, and then we'll get on the dryer. So that one looks good, that one looks good, good contact all the way around. That one has good contact all the way around too. That looks good. Now normally you don't want to cool a braze joint, but when you've got an electronic expansion valve, or EEV, even though we got the heat blocking compound, we got to be careful. So get the cool on there, and then we're going to get upstairs and start doing the dryer right now. Alright, we are going to braze in the fittings. I'm using pre-made flares on this. A lot of people don't trust the pre-made flares, but I've had good luck with them. Okay. Let me get around this back side. Okay. The bottom one's a little tricky. Never the prettiest on my bottom brazes. And then we got this last valve inlet over here. All right, I installed a Sporlan catch-all. It didn't line up, but installed a catch-all. Hopefully that'll protect everything. I went an oversized capacity dryer, went with a 16 cubic inch. Went ahead and put a flare. You guys know my style, so that way it's easier for me or the next guy next time to have to replace it. That way they don't got to bring torches up here. I did have to repipe a few things, and I did use pre-made flares, like I said, but I've had pretty good luck with them. Always inspect them. So tightened everything down, oiled the nuts before I put them on. We're going to get ready to pull the evacuation now. This entire time we've been purging with nitrogen, so we're going to pull the evacuation and then hopefully start it up. Vacuum's running. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again. This is a pump down system. I shut this valve down, the king valve. I front seated it. The refrigerant flow stopped through that valve. My experience is that these valves still leak. And being that this is a pump down system, you will not see a perfect vacuum. I'm not going to see this pull down to 400 microns and hold. It's not going to happen because my experience, correct me, I mean, if you guys have other experience, let me know. But my experience is that in order to get that 400 microns in the perfect decay test, you basically are going to pull all the refrigerant out of the system. So what you're doing is you're pulling against the scroll set, and you're pulling against that king valve, and they're just not leak free in my experience. And then also I guess you're pulling on the headmaster too, or head pressure control valve in a way. So there's too many leak points on this. So if I could get it below 1,000, I'm a happy camper on this. All right, we're gonna do a double take just to make sure everything's back together. The valve orientation's correct. Sensors are all back in place. I love how they make that stuff all nice and pretty in there. Okay, we're good, we're good. All right, I'm gonna apply power. Valve's closing. Perfect. Perfect, it closed. So then I'm gonna go ahead and hit test. Okay. Actually, no. Reset. I'm gonna go ahead and have my tech on the roof turn it on, and we should not be flowing right now while it's still off. All right, so we are running right now. Yeah, we're at about 70 PSI, and I'm hoping that it's pumping down right now. So that matches what I'm reading right here. I'm using my wireless setup right now. So 57, 58, yeah, we're good. Okay, so we gotta make sure that it actually, so the fans just shut off. We gotta make sure that it actually pumps down and shuts off, and then that will tell us that the valve is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So we're gonna let it keep pumping down just to make sure. Now the question is, what caused the valve to fail? That I don't know, and I'm concerned about that. And that's why I went ahead and changed it, is because look, tech support told me like, hey, if you want, you can change just the solenoid coil. But the problem is you can't, their part came with the valve too. So I was gonna sell the customer a ridiculously expensive solenoid coil, and then my problem is what happens if it burns that new one up? Do I have to buy a whole new assembly again? And what caused the solenoid coil to fail? So usually in like normal solenoid valves, if the valve's getting sticky or something, it can cause the solenoid to burn out, or at least that's my experience, the coil. So that's why I changed the whole assembly. Just get it done, I was here. So we gotta wait and make sure that this thing actually pumps all the way down. Okay, we satisfied. It's shut off and it's holding, and we're not bypassing anymore. The valve is sealed. We're looking good. So now we're gonna go ahead and turn this guy on. Let's go ahead and hit reset. Okay, so we're gonna wait for it to turn on, and everything should be good. I'm just waiting for this to turn on. It says air temperature is 50, and I'm reading about 47. I'm reading about 47, so pretty close. I've got my thermometer back here. The defrost temperature, or the coil temperature, this one right here. There's a sensor right back there in that back corner. That one's reading about the same, 50-something degrees. So it's not 50 degrees in here though, because their kegs are actually frozen still. So once the air starts moving around, the temp's actually dropping quite quick. This thing's running. Sight glass is clear. Gotta love that Sporlan see-all. That thing's nice and big, so you can really see in there. Well, I thought I was done. I was wondering if we were going to run into a problem. The compressor just shut off on thermal overload. So that sucks. I'm wondering if that low superheat washed the oil out of the compressor. That's not good at all. I unplugged it for now. Left the condenser fan motors running to cool it off. We'll probably get a hose up here and cool this guy off and see if we can't get it to restart. I just thought of something and I'm hoping it's this easy. So it's still cooling off. I left the condenser fan motors running, just disconnected the Molex plug. This pressure control, these things constantly, scroll compressors don't like pumping down past 5 PSI. And I remember this thing when we were trying to pump it down earlier, it pulled down to like 4 PSI and then it, internal pressure relief happens. So I'm going to try to adjust this if I can get it to reset and see if that's why it went off on thermal. All right, the thermal overload has reset. Yep. We're doing good so far. So we're going to go ahead and put it back together. I'm going to shut it off. I made an adjustment to the pressure control too. All right, we're getting ready to start it up. And I did confirm when I pulled it off, I had 208 3-phase going to that compressor. So it's cooled down. We're going to try to start it up and see if it'll run now. So it's running 4 amps and you're allowed to run 4.7. So we're running 4.2. We're gonna let it run for a few minutes and then I'm gonna try to pump it down after I made the pressure control adjustments. All right, so it's shut down. Yeah, that's not good. You heard that restart? That's why, that pressure control's out of whack. Yeah, that's why it's doing it. The pressure control's jacked up. I tried adjusting it and it didn't take the pressure setting. All right, I'm not an advocate for doing hot swaps all the time, but I am gonna do a hot swap here. So I got the old pressure control bypassed. We're pumping it down. I front seated the king valve. I'm not gonna drag all my crap back up here to do this again. Once I get it to shut down, I'm gonna turn off the compressor and we're just gonna swap out under a low pressure. So we're gonna shut it off about right there. And let's make sure that it holds and doesn't rise too high. We may have to turn it on again because sometimes some oil is boiling out of the compressor or something. Let's give it a couple seconds. Looks like it just popped back up. We're gonna give it a couple seconds. Now, this is the reason why Heatcraft installs these time delays in here. There's a time delay down there, but you can't use the time delay with the QRC because it interferes with it. So it's just kind of silly. All right, we're gonna give it another couple seconds. We're gonna turn this back on. I wanna get it a little bit lower than 23 PSI if I can. Turn it on again. $16 PSI. No. What the heck? Do we have a bad pressure relief? What the heck is going on here? It's like the pressure relief just let go in the compressor. 79 PSI. What the flip? What's going on? Man, look at, we're pumped down at the king valve. There's no way for the pressure in the system to rise like that. It's happening inside the scroll. Oh man, this sucks. I told you earlier it was making a funky sound when it was running. So it pulls down, gets to like 20 PSI, but then I shut it off and it just rises. It's leaking internally in the compressor. Let's see if it keeps going on this one. This one stopped at 30 PSI. This is so weird. Alright,
I don't know. See, it's stopping now. It's not doing it again. What the heck? Let's give it a minute and see if it pops free again. All right, we swapped out the pressure control. And it's not bypassing anymore. I don't know what the heck that was. I don't know if the pressure relief inside was about ready to release. I don't get it, but it's not doing it anymore. So we shut off about 23 psi, and then it rose up to about 26 and held. So right now we're going downstairs to reset the evaporator because it's off on a delay, I'm sure, low superheat or something like that. And then we'll test it again. Yeah, that was a trip. The pressure control wasn't shutting it off, and then it was causing the compressor to go off on thermal and do some funky stuff. Thing's hot too still. All right, we just pumped down again. It's satisfied, I believe. I have someone going downstairs to check it. I'm putting this stupid time delay back into here. You're not supposed to have the time delays on these QRCs, but I'm worried about this thing. These things do not like to turn on and off. So this damn thing is running high amps now too, 5.7 amps, but it's flooding back. That's why. I'm thinking we might be in pump down at the moment. Let's see if it pumps down. Nope, not in pump down. Just turned back on. 56 psi. This thing's all over the map right now. I wonder if that thing's bypassing inside the compressor, like letting pressure through or something. This is one of those things, I swear, I cannot escape this crap. So my discharge, the head pressure control valve is bypassing right now. It's not supposed to bypass till 150 psi. So discharge line temperature is 145 degrees. Okay? The line going into the receiver is 112. And then the line coming out of the bottom of the condenser is 79. We're totally bypassing right now on that damn head pressure control valve. What the heck? For real, this is insane right now. Good grief. So we're sending high temperature liquid. What the heck, man? Yeah, the receiver's red hot. I was wondering why my head pressure was so high when it's like 80 degrees outside. And the compressor just went off on thermal overload again. But that damn headmaster is bypassing. Why? It shouldn't be. All right, we're pulling the gas out. All this, and I still don't know if there's an issue with the compressor or if it was just shutting off a thermal overload because of the head pressure control valve that was bypassing. But it's weird though, because it wasn't horrendous. I mean, there was a couple points today that I saw 300 head pressure, and this is 448A, so that's, you know, a really hot day. But then it dropped down. It was like it was bypassing, but then not bypassing. But right now, this is the first time it was running consistent high amps the entire time. So I don't know. And that thing shouldn't. I tried clipping the tip too, and it didn't even relieve the pressure. It's almost like it's not. I don't know. All right, well, we're gonna get it bypassed because I don't have one. So. All right, we are purging through on the high side port right there, so that way it runs through all of our valves. I'm gonna cut these guys out real quick, unsweat this one, and we've got this open, so it's cleaning everything as I take that valve out. So all I'm gonna do is pinch this shut, because we're probably gonna come in and put in a new head pressure control valve, possibly, we'll see. We're gonna pinch this shut and then just run a piece from here to here permanently, then pull an evacuation on it. Now, it sucks, I'm in a hurry, I'm frustrated, but still the last thing I wanna do is plug up the new electronic valve, so we still are brazing with nitrogen, trying our best. I went ahead and blew through this and blocked these two off with nitrogen and like pressurized it to see if there was like oil in the condenser, but no, it's coming right through. So I made a little 90 right here, swaged it on each end, sweat it on, and then we're gonna sweat this one shut. So we need to weld or sweat this, this, and this right here. So. Kind of burnt the copper on the top a little bit there. It's good though. That ain't going nowhere. Quick inspection. There's a little drip on the back, but it'll be all right. That one's good. That one's good. All right, we're good. We're waiting for the evacuation to pull down. In the meantime, I pulled apart this head pressure control valve. Okay, there's some sort of goo right there. Not too bad, but check this out. This was on the seat. If I can get my camera to focus on it. It's a little piece of copper stuck on the seat. And that's why the head pressure control valve couldn't shut. That little piece of copper was stuck. Now, where that came from, I don't know. It doesn't really look like a burr. But it's obviously off of a piece of pipe or something like that. Something was floating in the system. Now, I don't know if that's what caused the, well, no. I don't think that's what caused the expansion valve to stick out. Well, maybe, I don't know. This is an interesting one. Anyways, all right, well, let's hope that this fixes it. All right, we are running, everything calmed down, head pressure dropped. I think I was missing the head pressure earlier, I just wasn't seeing it. Again, I'm so used to working with 404A that a 300 head pressure doesn't even strike me odd, but sometimes you can have tunnel vision. Now, the original problem though was the expansion valve. They called me saying their walk-in was getting too cold and everything was freezing. So, fixed that, but then when I came up here, I was missing the head pressure control valve, was already bypassing. I'm wondering if the head pressure control valve had a lot to do with everything. I know that had a lot to do with the superheat flying all over the place. We're not flooding back anymore. We've just got a steady 6-7 degrees superheat coming to this thing, monitoring out the board. So by flooding high temperature liquid slash vapor, well, it wasn't vapor, but just liquid refrigerant downstairs, you know, I guess it was just making the valve flood. All right, we're back today. We're going to change this headmaster head pressure control valve. I had to bring the whole van back up here, so that was fun. We're going to start by recovering the gas real quick. This shouldn't take us long. We're not even going to change the dryer because it was 2 days ago. So we're just going to pull a good evacuation, make sure we braze with nitrogen and knock it out real quick, hopefully. All right, while I was waiting for the evacuation, it's done now. We were kind of prepping everything, sanding everything up, kind of getting an idea how we're going to install the new valve. I've got a nitro flow going into the discharge line, and then we have it open at the receiver in hopes that we get most of the nitrogen purging through this area. Now, you know, when purging with nitrogen, it's not going to be perfect. You know, there's going to be spots in here that aren't going to get a great purge, but we're just going to try our best. Got this guy all prepped and repiped, everything's sanded, deburred, swaged. I was going to redo this whole thing right here, but I'd rather not unbraze and heat up the aluminum joint right there if I don't have to, so we're going to keep it up here. Yeah, we're going to wrap this guy in heat blocking compound, the wet rag, Viper wet rag stuff right here. All right, so we have the nitrogen flowing through. I put plenty of the heat blocking compound, the Viper wet rag stuff. The more the better, actually. All right, that didn't work out too well. All right, so we're going to heat everything away from the valve first. So we'll go ahead and do these ones. I'm using a 0 tip, really small right now. See that pull up into there a little bit more. There you go. I'm a heavy on the solder kind of guy. I'd rather see a lot of solder than not enough.
with nitrogen right now. Trying to protect the valve as much as possible. I'm just kind of looking for the solder that's already existing on the line to go liquid, and then I kind of have my go ahead to lay more fill. More solder on there, brazing rod, whatever you want to call it. Make sure that it pulls into the valve. Okay. Let me go ahead and do one more with this one. Okay. Looks like I might be running out of acetylene possibly, so let's see if we can finish this. Yeah, I'm running out of gas. Come on, baby, you can make it. Let's get this done. Almost there. Only one more to go after this. I don't think we're going to make it though. Try one more time. I don't think we're gonna make it. Maybe. Is that everything? I think that's all of them. Now I gotta inspect them and make sure that they actually all took. I literally just ran out of solder. That one took. Bill, not the prettiest thing. I'm not trying to win a beauty contest here. That one filled. Uh-oh. Alright, we're trying too hard. It's not gonna take. We gotta go get another tank. Alright, this is the one. Alright, we got new acetylene and oxygen on there. And you can actually see that we have flow. So I'm just going to heat these guys up real quick. This one had took, but it just, I don't know, I don't like seeing gaps. So just going to heat them up real quick one more time just to make sure that we got good coverage. Same thing on the valve, just to be safe. Just going to heat it up. Probably don't even need solder on almost anything. Just heat it up just to make sure it took in there. That's good. Check this one. And kind of shifted it right there.
sketch. Okay. And I think everything else is good, so I'm gonna give it another inspection real quick. This one's definitely good. Cool. This one's good. This one's good. This one's cool, no problem. This one's good. So we're gonna cool these guys and get that heat blocking compound off first, actually. I just use like a towel or something, or a rod, anything really. The more of this stuff you use, the better it's gonna block the heat, because it has more mass for it to absorb the heat of the other stuff. So if you go super skimpy, your valve's still gonna get really hot. But yeah, this is doing good. Now, while I was going to get the new gas, what I did was I threw a wet towel over everything, so that way the wet towel will try to absorb some of the heat from the heat blocking compound. That's all it does, is just absorb the heat before it can get absorbed into your valve, really. Alright, so that's pretty good. Oh, I got a little bit more to go up here. Get that off real quick. And then we'll just hit it with a wire brush and a wet towel. Alright, got the vacuum pump running. We're still kind of high in the microns, so the gas ballast is still open, about 1700. We'll close it here in a minute. New valve is in. I wanted to point something out. So I use the Viper wet rag. You know, old school was use a towel. There's nothing wrong with the towel. Well, there's some downsides to using a towel, but there's some downsides to using this. I mean, it just depends. You have to, you know, look at the situation. The thing that sucks about a wet towel is true and tested. It's worked for years. Wet rag is true and tested too. It works. It's a newer product, you know, by Viper, but it's a great product. Now, using a wet towel in a situation like this, the water's going to drip down to your braze joint. And if you guys have ever had that happen when you're trying to do a lower braze joint, you've got water dripping down or steam messing with your braze joint, you know what I mean. I mean, it's a pain in the butt. So that's where this stuff really excels. Now, I get quite a few uses out of this, but you lose a little bit. I think I got a little bit down here on the ground. You know, you lose a little bit every time, but it's okay. All I do is add a couple drops of water to this, kind of mush it up, and keep using it. It's okay if it's dirty. But you can clearly see how it blocked the heat. I mean, you can see the braze joint, the braze joint, the braze joint, and the valve is pristine. I would say that valve's about 100 degrees right now. No big deal, okay? And it really wasn't that much hotter the entire time I was brazing it. I mean, even when I pulled the heat blocking compound off. Now, the key thing about using this, though, is you don't just leave it on there, because all that this stuff does is pull the heat away from the component. Now, eventually, this is going to get full of so much heat that it's going to start to transfer the heat to the component, right? You see where I'm saying with that? So you can't just leave it on there and walk away. Get this stuff off as fast as possible. So when I ran out of gas, what I did was I went and grabbed a wet towel and threw it over there, so that way the wet towel would start absorbing the heat of the compound, so that way it wouldn't be just, you know, going into the valve. But it's important to understand how to use it. You don't want to just put it on there and walk away and right after you get done brazing and just let the stuff sit on there, because it's just going to transfer the heat to the valve, right? You know, you want to be as quick as possible when you're using it, but I really do like the wet rag stuff. So I front seated the king valve on the receiver, so I'm just filling the receiver with as much gas as I can. Then that way I can control it making its way through the system. So you can see we still have no pressure on the low side. We put in about 7 pounds. I think that's about all it's going to take. So we're going to close off the high side hose, turn the system on, and then meter in the rest of the refrigerant. This thing takes about 14 pounds of gas, and I am going to have to add a pound or two, because you're never going to get, like, there's loss in the recovery machine, and then there's going to be a little bit that's stuck in the tank. So we will have to add about a pound or two to get it to the total 14 pounds. All right, we're all finished up. It's working. I'm still a little worried about that compressor, but we'll just tell them to keep an eye on it. Everything's good. We didn't have any more error messages when I bypassed the head pressure control valve. It was fine when we got here this morning. So customer's happy. We're going to call this one done.
All right, that one really worked me. I mean, you know, I felt like success replacing the EEV. You know, it went smooth. It was like, okay, you know, the diagnostic of the EEV was a little funky, but All right, cool. And to be frank, that was the first EEV I've ever replaced. I've really never had any problems with EEVs. I always, I shouldn't say I always, because there's a few that I haven't done, but I really strive to braze with nitrogen every time I'm using working on an EEV system, because I'm so afraid. I hear people saying they have problems all the time, and I've yet to have them. So I'm just always really adamant about using nitrogen when you're brazing on those systems. But this is the first one, and that little, and I don't know what caused the EEV to fail. In my head, I'm still kind of wondering, like, was it just a coil, the solenoid coil that failed on the EEV? That was a really interesting one. And I don't know if people are going to get confused by this. This system doesn't have a liquid line solenoid valve. Okay, Heatcraft uses the EEV as its solenoid valve. So maybe that helps a little bit more. Okay, so that's why when the board says it's at 0 steps, it should be shut, and it wasn't. So that was interesting, So I got the EEV replaced, and then, I kind of knew there was going to be something going on with the compressor because it had been flooding for a very long time. And to make it make more sense too, I mentioned in the video that I was afraid because the manager said for the last couple weeks they've been having this problem, and they decided they didn't want to call. They've just been shutting off the breaker for the evaporator fan motors, which I told her that doesn't shut off the compressor. So that compressor kept running and running and running, and that EEV was stuck open, and it was just flooding the compressor out. So I'm still worried about the compressor. There was some funky stuff going on in there, but I do think that when it was going off on thermal and I finally found that the head pressure control valve was bad, I have a feeling that the head pressure was getting so high that the pressure relief was on the verge of bypassing. And that's why when I had pumped the system down and then all of a sudden the suction pressure just flew up, I have a feeling it was just on the verge of bypassing the internal pressure relief, basically. So now, as far as the head pressure control valve, that was an interesting one. So I installed that system about 2 years ago. I don't know if I said that in the video. And I know that I brazed with nitrogen, and I don't think that burr was from me. I think that burr was from Heatcraft at the factory. Now, I have seen some funky stuff come out of Heatcraft that has driven me nuts over the years. I've shown it in videos. But think about this. That burr was in the bottom of the head pressure control valve. It was coming up the discharge line, okay? And it was stuck in the valve. I mean, it could have been from me, but I don't think it was, because the only braze joints I made when I did the installation on that system was the suction line at the evaporator, the liquid line at the evaporator. We have a one-piece line set. I bent it the whole way up. There's no braze joints anywhere else. And then we have a braze joint at the suction and liquid of the condensing unit. So in order for a burr to come back to that head pressure control valve, would have to go through the suction line. It would get dumped into the compressor, go to the bottom of the compressor, then that burr would have to get pumped out into the discharge line out the top of the compressor all the way into that head pressure control valve. And while it'd be possible, I don't think it was. I think from the day that unit was built, I believe that there's burrs in those lines, and that's what caused that head pressure control valve to fail. There was nothing wrong with the valve. It was just there was something stuck inside of it. It just sucked. But anyways, we got it going. It was a stressful one. It has now been about 2.5 weeks since I did that call, or a week. I don't know. It was like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that. But everything has been good. The customer's been happy. I even went back and did a follow-up visit, no issues. Hopefully the compressor doesn't become a problem. I did let the customer know that I was worried about the compressor, but right now we're just going to let it be, and we'll just monitor it. Now, of course, it's not really probably going to be a problem throughout the fall and the winter. It'll probably take a dump in the summertime when it gets really hot, and anyways, but that's a whole nother headache to worry about then. I really, really appreciate you guys making it through this one. This was a long one. If you guys feel so inclined, you guys could support the channel by simply just leaving a comment, by giving a thumbs up. That really does help. A thumbs down, I don't care. Just leave some kind of feedback, okay? If you guys feel the need to, you guys can go to my website, hvacrvideos.com. I've got merch available. I've got hats and shirts. And I keep saying this, but I've got a order of beanies coming. And I'm restocking on all the shirts coming. I'm restocking on the hats coming. And in the, let's see, I haven't placed the order for the sweaters or the new shirt design yet, but those will be coming hopefully in a while too. I'm very particular about the styles that I do and stuff, so I have to order samples of every single design. So we made a design change on the shirt. It's a completely new design, and I need to see the samples before I approve them because I have to put a lot of money out in purchasing large quantities of shirts, so got to be careful. Same thing with the sweater. I got a sweater in. It was bitchin'. It looked really cool, awesome design, and I wore it for about 2 days, and the zipper got stuck. And I called the guy back, and I said, you need to find a different brand sweater, okay? And he's on it. He's finding me a different brand, so we're trying to find a different brand because I don't want the sweaters to get in your guys' hands, and then you guys have zippers getting stuck in crap, so... So we're working on that, but I'm just very adamant about that. There's some other ways if you guys are interested to support the channel. If you guys are considering purchasing any tools, go to truetechtools.com. You can use my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word, and you'll save 8% on your order, and I get a small commission from that. Also, if you guys know what you're going to purchase from True Tech Tools, shoot me an email, and I'll generate an affiliate link for you, and the affiliate link helps me out a little bit more, but you still get your 8% off by using the Big Picture offer code. You can support me on Patreon. You can become a patron. You can support me by becoming a YouTube channel member. I think that's the support stuff, I think. I do live streams Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, work permitting, or power and internet permitting, unlike the last live stream that I had to cancel because I didn't have power. And I go live on the HVAC Overtime channel Friday evenings about 6:05 p.m. with the Overtime crew. HVACR North Joe, A-Team Adam, and Curious HVAC guy Bill. We go live and just kind of talk about the week, and I'll probably be talking about the craziness that happened to me this week, which you guys can hear about on the Overtime channel. Okay? Really, really appreciate it, guys. Again, leave me some feedback. Consider subscribing if you haven't. And we'll catch you guys on the next one, okay?